welcome back to the Command Your Brand show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand. So in this episode, I actually have a very interesting guest speaker who I've only known him via an email, so I actually never met him face to face, but we had a phone call and, it's we kind of talked about maybe about a year ago, I would say, or maybe earlier this year. And, we actually kind of hit it off really well. He's also a podcast host. He's the CEO and founder of his own company. And he's actually a founder, I forget the job title, but you're also help running a nonprofit. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Gabriel Flores. So Gabriel, thanks for joining the show, man.
Yeah, no, Josh, thank you so much. First and foremost, I absolutely love your last name. That is the most awesome last name right there. So yeah, folks, Gabriel Flores from the Pacific Northwest here in Portland, Oregon. I do wear several hats. My full-time job is actually in healthcare. I focus in business development. Wow. I help support Oregon Health Science University's cancer, cardiovascular, and general surgery programs, going out in the communities, building relationships. And then during the pandemic, as I was going to Syracuse University, go Orange, I was getting my degree, my master's degree, and the pandemic hit. And so here I'm at home reading a bunch of Harvard Business Review case studies about entrepreneurs' successes and failures. And so I'm like, hey, why don't I start a podcast called The Shades of Entrepreneurship? You can check it out at theshadesofe.com. And really, that was really primarily focused on the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Northern California, Idaho, really trying to create some awareness to the community because we were really decimated during that pandemic time. And so that, right. Been doing that since 2020, got about 180 episodes in. Again, you can check it out, theshadesofe.com. And then once that, I actually had a couple of different guests come on and really kind of sparked some innovative ideas. And so two of those guests was Edgar Navas and Juan Barraza. And they had been doing like this pitch kind of competition for, a better part of a decade at this point. However, the pandemic had also kind of taken the wind out of their sails. And so, I had started become interested in becoming a little bit more involved in the nonprofit world. And so they're like, hey, if you're interested, we're thinking about pushing this a little bit forward. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's make this a full-on 501c3. And so we established Latino Founders. I'm the president and co-founder of Latino Founders. Our goal is actually to help scale 100 Latino businesses here in the state of Oregon to $1 million reoccurring revenue in 5 years. So how do we do that? Well, we got a couple of different initiatives. One is our pitch competition called Pitch Latino. You can check it out. Go to latinofounder.com and check out that stuff. But essentially what that is, we allow individuals, about 10 individuals, to come pitch their idea. And we do in different locations. So I'm in Oregon. Oregon's 96,000 square miles. So we'll have individuals actually participate in Southern Oregon, right? And then the winner of Southern Oregon will come up to Portland because Portland is the metro. And then we'll go to Eastern Oregon. The winner of Eastern Oregon comes back to Portland. The way we kind of do it is the winner of those smaller community pitch competitions, they get about $10,000. There's an award of up to $10,000 in unrestricted grant funding. And then the community ones, or the regional ones, when they come up to the Portland area, those are opportunity to establish or win $30,000 in unrestricted grant funding. So I know a lot of information at once, a lot of hats I'm wearing, but no, it's been great because I think one of the things we'll kind of dump into is really how marketing kind of plays a big piece in all sectors, and it's relatively pretty translucent when it comes to like being able to use it from a different perspective. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, like, part of one of the things I usually do ask, and one of my first questions I ask is like why even start what you started? Like, I'm just so curious, like, because you're like a million CEOs in different places, like you're in charge of like literally getting all Latinos, like making six figures. Like, I guess why did you start that in the first place? Like, what drove you the most to be like, you know what, this is my passion, this is like what I love to do, I'm going to do it? Like, what made you want to decide that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it goes back to, me, myself, my family, to be honest with you. For me personally, my dad is one of 13. My mom is one of 16. So I have a extensive family. I remember, stories of my mom, having a bandana draped over her neck with a rope tied to 2 buckets picking berries, so that kind of ancestral work, right, in me already is really trying to create perseverance. Now, I'm very fortunate. I've really been working really hard to be successful in my career in the healthcare space. And so now really what I'm trying to focus on is the opportunity to create generational wealth. Right. So I'm not trying to exploit our community. I'm truly trying to elevate it. I want to really have these individuals not take on VC. We are not pushing venture capital. So if you're a VC out there, I'm sorry, that's not what we're into. But we're happy to have those conversations if that comes to it. But our goal is to really kind of get your operations in line, get your marketing, branding, truly make yourself efficient enough to scale so you can create generational wealth for yourself and your family. Because at the end of the day, that's going to help support our economy. One of my former guests came on and said, if our community is never doing well, our economy never will. And so that really kind of took to heart. I'm like, that's a great statement, because every one of my neighbors, if they're not doing well, then our economy is going to be, in a kind of a bad position. And so that's kind of really where the drive came from. I would say, the family's kind of very hardworking family, a lot of big people, and really seeing us for better part of 2 decades struggling financially. I'm one of 4. Yeah. We lived in a 3-bedroom house, so 6 people in a 3-bedroom house, but again, my parents were constantly, Christmases were awesome. It didn't really matter how much money we had. It felt like we were rich. We would take a trip every summer. Granted, we would drive. I didn't actually fly on the plane for my first time until I was 17 years old. And then we actually went to Disneyland the week after spring break because it was cheaper, and so there's but again, it felt rich to me. I didn't know what rich wasn't. Getting cable television, I thought people with cable television were the richest people in the world. Truly, having Nickelodeon, I thought was when we were able to get Nickelodeon, when we finally got dialed up internet, I was stoked. That was like the coolest moment, but again, I think that perspective for me was rich. I was rich in those moments. And then as I grew up realizing no, actually there's more to it. Now that's not to say I'm very satisfied for where I'm at. Right. However, now I'm like, our community, we can continue to do more. We can continue to build our current GDP was like 2.7 trillion buying power for Latina women just alone, right? And so we have a huge culture that is untapped and unsupported sometimes. I'm not looking for handouts. We're not looking for the white and shining armor kind of person to come through, but we are letting people know, hey, we're here, we're on the map, and we're going to go ahead and make a big dent in the economy. And we're trying to help support it in every way we can as well.
Yeah, I find it so interesting. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I grew up I've grown up in Jersey and in New York, and I've gone to New York. I've lived in Jersey my whole life. And I'll tell you something is people can say whatever they want, but Latinos know how to work. It's the most incredible thing. They will do because I also know too, I have a lot of friends who are Latinos. They're from wherever. Oh yeah. And they come to America and they're like, dude, I've struggled. I want to get out of that. And it's it's so funny is I was born obviously here in America, and a lot of people are, and a lot of people think that, that opportunities just come and just given to you, here you go. This is all for you. But it's really amazing how just Latinos just really come out of their shell and just really just work. And they do such a great job at a lot of different things. And it's really, I'm so actually impressed with people who actually just do it. I see because in Jersey, where I live, there's a lot of South Americans, from Mexico, Ecuador, just all these different cultures, very diverse, right? And they work so hard, and they just push themselves even further, just literally, let me just work until I basically die, and it's just a really incredible. And I know just because I'm pretty sure with Flores, you're probably of Latino descent, it's you work so hard, and it's and I guess my first question or my second question is how do you push yourself? How do you actually do it? Because I think America needs a lesson in that, to be honest with you.
That's kind of why I actually started the Shades of Entrepreneurship podcast, to be honest with you. One of the things you mentioned is, people don't understand the difficulties of entrepreneurship, of creating a small business, of the work that goes behind the scenes. There are many nights where I'm in this basement, really late at night. There's nights even when my wife, she's working weekends and working super late on days when she's not supposed to be working as well. It's not really all, rainbows and butterflies. Now, really what I'm trying to do is just provide education. So at least we're not starting so far away from the finish line, right? At least help us kind of avoid some of the landmines. So why not share my best practices, because to your point, the Latino Hispanic community, they're extremely hardworking. And so are a lot of communities, right? A lot of different cultures, extremely hardworking. Now, with that said, I want to be able to put kind of a roadmap in front of them and say, you can actually get even closer to that finish line, or you can actually extend that finish line even further because now you have an opportunity to do even more in your career, right? And so really the goal is to bring awareness that the hard work that you're doing doesn't necessarily have to always be for somebody else, right? You can also create an innovative idea and go ahead and thrive in that scenario. Or if you want to stay very consistent in that, okay, well, let's make sure you're operationally efficient. So you're actually creating a revenue, right? So you have an exit strategy, because the truth be told, I'm, again, Pacific Northwest. I come from people of farmers, right? We come from a very rural community.
Right.
Well, a lot of the farmers, I think the average age of a farmer is about 59 years old. And the kids don't want to take over the farms. So it's like, we're now struggling here in the fruit belt. How do we support the community and the economy with all of the fruit, all the vegetables, if we don't have farmers that are able to produce these crops? Well, now we actually have to teach the next generation, right? That's the incubators, that's the accelerators, those are the networking events, so getting out there and building those rapport is really important. But it's also, again, going back to the Latino community or the communities that are extremely hardworking. Well, now it's like, here's some additional tools for your tool belt because you're extremely hardworking. Here's like the innovative tool, right? Think about some innovations within your own market, within your own vertical. Farming always has really cool innovation. There's a lot of people that are creating new seeds, new grain, right? I mean, who thought like you can be, if you're out there in research and you're a scientist, you can go to SBR Loan, you can actually start doing research on how to create better produce, right? So there's innovation everywhere within every vertical. And so really we're just trying to provide some awareness like, hey, here's some tools for you if you want to continue to move forward, or if you want to start a little bit closer to that finish line, right? Your retirement goal or whatever your goal might be, or if you want to move it further because now you've actually passed your previous goal, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting too. It's like, some people don't realize that they kind of just work and they don't know where they're going. And it's kind of like they have to just keep working. And sometimes but they never actually set goals for themselves. And I find, because a lot of people who are listening, who are, most of CEOs and founders are just like, they seem like there's never a goal they actually are trying to reach, or there is a goal and they're like, oh, where is that actually? Where am I capped at? Where should I be at? So I guess like even for new entrepreneurs, like what do you say to how would someone escalate, or how should they challenge themselves in actually building their business, do you think?
Oh yeah, it's the imposter syndrome piece, right? I think everybody kind of goes through that sense of imposter syndrome. The Superman imposter syndrome is the individuals that are constantly doing a bunch of different work, right? And it's not actually, the satisfaction comes from the work itself, not from like completing the work or the accomplishment of the work. Because some people really see themselves, well, if I'm really busy and I stay busy, well then I'm successful. Right. Well, I would also encourage people to read the Lazy CEO book, right? Where that's really kind of saying, to be truly successful, like my success is being able to shut this down at 5:00 at night and go upstairs to my 2 girls and my wife, right? That's true success for me. Being able to sit around the table every night with my 2 kids and my wife and have dinner every night, turn off the TV, nothing's on, right? And it's just us talking about the day. My kid's 4 and I still ask her like, hey, how was school today? Did you guys do a project? Do you draw? Did you guys eat outside? Eat inside? How was recess? Just those little things to kind of build it. But it's like, really, really trying to create a synergy, or essentially like, again, my personal goal is trying to create a balance of like, you can't do it all. you do have to be mindful of the time. You have to be mindful of your own stress, right? But that imposter syndrome is real. What I would also encourage folks to do is kind of fake it till you make it. And I don't mean to wing it. What I do mean though is go out and educate yourself. If you're interested in a certain market or a certain industry, there are conferences out there, there are networking events out there, there are blog posts. Go check out theshadesofE.com. There's a lot of information out there for all these different business verticals, right? And the goal really is get yourself a little bit more educated in that space. If you lack in operations, right? Hire somebody that's really fluent in operations, or go out to conferences, maybe take some educational training. YouTube University. I mean, we're very, very fortunate right now where we live in a day and age where there's podcasts like yours, John or Josh. There's these podcasts. There's blog posts. There's all of these different things where you can go out and get free education in your pocket right now. We have more information in our pocket on our phone than we've ever had in the last 20 years. And so utilize it. Utilize it, and then network. There are so many different individuals out there that want to see you succeed as well. And that's kind of the beauty of it. It's really interesting when you kind of go out and you meet someone within the small business sphere, that ecosystem. They all want to like have everybody else succeed, right? They all boats rise with the tide kind of a philosophy. And so you're going to find people that they're either going to give you some insight of like, hey, don't work with that, or don't go over there, or don't do this, or saying, hey, you should do this, or hey, it's time to pivot, or do you need some resources? One of the coolest things that we do here in the Pacific Northwest is co-packing facilities. Now, we don't have enough of them, but the reason this is important is because it allows the smaller businesses like Altitude Beverage here in Bend, Oregon. They do non-alcoholic drinks, right? However, they actually connected with Swift Cider. So there's a cider company and a non-alcoholic company, and they use both the same co-packing facility. The reason for this is because both of those companies aren't large enough to have the machines running 24/7, but they're big enough to have do a couple 10,000 unit production runs, right? Well, if we've got a couple of businesses that are able to do that in one location, now the skilled worker that's actually doing the cannery for them, right? Because that is a skilled work, right? That you need to know about. That individual now has a job full time. These two small businesses are being able to produce at a rate that they're not operationally, killing themselves. And the beauty of it, as they continue to grow, now they can use their buying power together. If you go purchase 10 tons of sugar, it's much cheaper to purchase 10 tons of sugar on a per pound basis than it is to actually go buy a pound of sugar. Because you get the scale, right? So like a good example, go check out swag, the number 4, mybrand.com. It's my website where I basically help brands elevate their brand and really create their own identity. And it's customized, high quality merchandise, corporate merchandise, brand merchandise. So you go in there, you can see like a JBL speaker and you can put your own logo on it. But the cool thing about it is if you, on the calculator on the side, it will tell you if you go to 500 units, you'll see the price break. 1,000 units, price break.
Yeah.
And so as you kind of scale up in size, you'll begin to see the price break. And it's the same thing with any small business, right? So go out there, network, find a mentor. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There are no dumb questions. Nobody, again, like I said, that finish line piece, nobody started at the finish line. Everybody started somewhere, right? And so the questions that you're asking, somebody asked them already as well. And so that's the only way we're going to learn, to share those best practices, continue to go out there, network, find a mentor, and you're going to be fine. And don't be scared. Don't be scared to fail. It's okay. Because when you fail, you learn more when you fail than anything. I wish I would have actually done more than actually pay the amount of money. Don't worry, I love Syracuse. I had a great time in my grad program, went to Portland State, go Vikings. But at the end of the day, I could have saved myself a lot of money by just going out and trying a lot of things, So have it your own way. You can kind of pick your own adventure.
Right. I guess it's interesting too, because I've had a lot of people, and several people I've interviewed have just been it's okay to fail, because people tend to feel it's really interesting. People take interest more when they fail, or they're stuck more when they fail more than when they succeed. And I find that's very interesting because, like, our minds are so wired to like, oh, we're always trying to do better, but then we always fail at something. So like we should suck into that. So it's kind of interesting how you put that. Like, it's okay to fail, and you'll fail. You'll probably most likely fail a lot of things, but it'll lead to a good path. So I think that's really interesting what you mentioned about that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting too. You mentioned earlier about how just you're making some brand, like you're changing the person's brand and just actually getting them more known and more aware. So do you ever find when you work with someone, is there some mistakes they made in terms of like when they come to you for like, fixing their brand or making them more aware of who they are? What are some mistakes that you found with people when they come to you, like the key mistakes that people have?
Yeah, and first and foremost, folks, I'll tell you right now, I am not Mr. Perfect, so do not expect me to be Mr. Perfect. Yeah. I also am learning as well. I continue to learn every day. Now, with that said, I think one of the first things from a brand's perspective is we forget about our marketing and sales funnel. We forget about how do we, one, capture the audience, and then how do we retain it? Because at the end of the day, the cost of a new customer costs way more than if it costs to retain it. That's why when you see companies like your cable company or your cell phone company, when you try to cancel, right? You go and they'll do anything possible to prevent, we'll give you 30% off and we'll give you HBO for free and all these different things, right? The reason because of that, because it costs so much money to actually get a new customer, right? And now that goes to the branding. So your first level of your marketing funnel should be your awareness, right? For me, that's the newsletter, right? So you go to theshadesofye.com, subscribe to the newsletter. That's my first funnel. Right. So as you begin to get in my funnel, okay, now I know you're in my funnel because you're creating awareness, right? I'm out there. Everybody's now you're kind of at the evaluation stage. Now, once you get to the newsletter, I want to get to that evaluation stage, which is the website. Again, theshadesofye.com. I want you to get from the newsletter to the website. Now, what do I want to do when I get to the website? Well, from there, I want to convert you from being someone that's just evaluating the website to convert you to being either a subscriber of the podcast, to subscribe to the newsletter, or somebody that actually goes to the shop and purchases an item. Okay. So now if you go to the shop and you go and check out theshadesofye.com and you look at some of the sweaters and you put something in your cart and you don't purchase it, I'm giving you guys a tip right now. If you don't purchase it and it stays in your cart, you're going to get an automated email in about 2 days with a discount probably for that item to purchase it. Because again, I'm trying to convert you to a pay now, right? So now I'm trying to get you from awareness, right? Evaluation, conversion to a paying customer to actually make a purchase, okay, to that conversion. So once you get to the conversion stage, you purchased it. Now I want to connect with you. Hey, thank you so much for showing it. Hey, we would be interested in maybe writing a review on Google about it, or maybe sharing your experience online. Because then that creates a loyal consumer. Because then what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take that comment, if it's a good comment, I'm going to put it on my website, I'm going to tag you. Now you're going to feel good. Oh my God, the brand I just purchased from is recognizing me and well, yeah, because you are now a loyal consumer who purchased it, and I want you to continue to come back. But you sharing it out on your social media channel, that is free advertisement for me. So that's why it's kind of very important. I would say those are the biggest things I'm always kind of encouraging folks before I would say even taking a step back before you even get to that, make sure you have a market before you're selling anything. Make sure you truly, like, once you get your minimal viable product, okay, cool, now you're there, make sure you have a market to actually sell it. Go out and do it to a few different test runs. Like if you're doing, let's say, for example, lotions, take out a couple of samples of lotions and go to like a farmer's market and have people try them for free, and just give them out samples and see if people will engage in you and like it and get their feedback. If you have enough engagement and people are like, oh, this is a really good product, now you can go make a run. Go buy 1,000 units or 10,000 units, right? Don't do that first. Make sure you have a proof of concept before you go in and purchase a bunch of money. That's another big thing. And another thing is, like, No more softwares aren't going to help you. Buying a CRM is not going to make you money. Buying a website is not going to make you money. If you don't have all of these things working in tandem, like if you're truly not making money right now from what you're doing, you're probably not going to make money buying a CRM. You're probably not going to make money buying another website. You're like, if you're not making the revenue yet, and maybe you start thinking about, is this the right, is my product even have a market, right? Focus on that first and then kind of grow from there.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you mentioned that. It's kind of like, I'm looking at now 10, 15 years ago, like, when podcasting wasn't a thing. And it's funny is like, people, oh my God, you're going on a radio show. It's like such a big deal because there's like so few of them. It's like so popular on a radio show. But now it's like, we have a very interesting time where now, like, I'll just give an example. Like, we look at the election that just happened, right? And it's like, one of the key things he said was like, oh, you got to get on podcasts because podcast is like the new media. That's what people are talking about. And so like now it's funny, like, even you didn't realize it. Now we have a president promoting what podcasting can do and like how it's now a sellable service. It's like now people want it. So it's kind of like, it makes so much sense what you were talking about, just the, making things ready for people and just actually delivering what is a marketable service.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, ask people, like, and here's another encouraging thing, or one thing I would recommend. Don't ask just your family and friends. Grandma always is going to tell you that your product, your idea is the best, right? Make sure you ask people, and don't be afraid to share your idea. Nobody's out there trying to steal your idea, because if they were, then they would already be doing it. It's not easy. Entrepreneurship is not easy. You really have to have a passion for what you're doing. Nobody's out there gonna, don't make people sign NDAs. Nobody wants, if you come to me and you want some of my advice and you want to go through an hour conversation, I'm happy to do that. I do business services, do a lot of coaching, happy to go through your strategy, happy to look at it. But don't make me sign an NDA. I'm not stealing your idea. I'm happy to work with you, but I don't want your idea. I don't want to do more work. I already have. Everybody has their own ideas, right? Everybody already has their own thoughts. And what you might actually find more enlightening than anything is people that are saying like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let me connect you with this person." Right? Let me connect you with this. Let me connect you with that. So you're going to actually probably find a lot more value sharing your ideas than forwarding it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I find when people withhold communication and don't actually say something, then they kind of lose it, and then someone else invents it, and then you've lost your chance.
That's a great point, Josh. My first company was SLM Apparel. Essentially, what I was trying to do was recreate the size kind of chart of shirts, because I'm a 6 foot, 210, 220 pound guy sometimes on a bad day if I have a little bit much. But nonetheless, my goal is like when I buy a Nike shirt, if I buy an extra large back in the day, it fit me like a sleeping bag, right? Super huge and wily. But then if I bought a large and I washed it one time, now I'm like a tube top. I never found that median.
Yeah.
And so my goal with SLM Apparel was really to try to find that median. And when I was going, that was like my first kind of foray into entrepreneurship. And that's when I really realized I need to go to school, because I had no clue what the heck I'm doing. And so that's really when I started business school. But during that time, I was essentially trying to create a company very similar to Untuck. Right, the new company, that the t-shirt brand that recently come out. That is exactly what I was trying to create. I just didn't have the knowledge of the market, of the apparel world, to be honest with you. The different blends, the cottons versus poly versus all the spandex, and then the different variations you can have, the percentages and the different warehouses. I was deer in the headlights, but it was a great learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. It's all business is I find that business, no matter what field you work in, it's always a learning experience. Like you're learning as you go. And you know what? Even if you got 20, 30 years under your belt in the same business, it's still a learning experience because you're learning. And, as we go, decades and years later, it's sort of like it changes. Like, I'll give an example. It's like we look at like, the film industry or like just other clothing companies, like, our clothing, like you mentioned before, like our clothing was different 100 years ago. Now look how much has changed. Like I think I was reading something. There used to be 2 different types of clothes, and that's all they were promoted. So 2 different types of clothes. Yeah. Now that's it. And now that I think they promote it, they promote 32 different types of clothes every few weeks. It's really weird. It's like, look how much has changed in over 100 years.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, customization, right? Everybody wants that concierge service, right? In fact, again, folks, go check out swag, the number 4 mybrand.com. Go check it out. You can customize the North Face, Nike, JBL, Ember coffee mugs, all these different things. You can put your brand now. Anything over 1,000 items, I highly recommend just reach out to info@swagformybrand.com. Reach out to them. Our sales team will get you going. But go check it out. Go check out the website. Again, swag, the number 4, mybrand.com. Check it out. You can upload your logo, and so you can kind of see what would look like having your own custom, thing on your brand. Because again, everybody wants that concierge service now. Everybody wants that white glove treatment, right? And people want to they want to be cared for and about. When I go to Starbucks, I don't want my coffee right sometimes or usually. I want it to be correct always, right? I want them to write my name incorrectly on the cup every time, because I feel like that's the service we get, and that's what I come to expect, and so it's just it's imperative. And again, consistency. When you mentioned brand earlier, consistency is key. And when you talked about failure as well, one thing I'm constantly saying on my podcast is I've never failed a day in my life. I either learn or I succeed. Because to me, failure, if I say I failed, that means I stopped trying. I stopped doing it. I'm done. But essentially what I'm doing is like, I'm learning something new. I'm going to try it different. I'm going to pivot.
Yeah. So I guess also about your business, I'm sort of curious, are there any stories that you have that actually, that you feel like you made a really good impact on, that was just like, wow, I actually helped this person. This person was like, dude, this guy literally just loves our service so much. Like, can you give me like 1 or 2 examples of like someone you had success with on your services?
Yeah. In fact, the most recent one I would say is the most recent Pitch Latino competition. So there's 2 different individuals that I worked with on that one. So one was actually the winner, Okata. So we actually helped coach that individual. I helped coach them get them ready for their pitch competition. And so one of the things I'm always talking about is storytelling, and making sure you make it relatable. One thing I pretty constantly use as an example is the AT&T commercial on the airlines when they're talking about the guy sitting a couple of seats in front. And he's like, "Oh, can I get a water?" It's like, "Yeah, it's extra $3." And the guy's drinking his free water because he had the upgrade seats. And essentially AT&T was trying to relate that everybody understands that airlines have hidden fees. AT&T doesn't.
Of course.
Right. And so they're trying to create that story. And so with Okata, one thing I told her, she's from El Salvador. She's coming here to the States and she's wanting to make crema. So crema is a sauce that, a lot of Latin American individuals use on everything. Really. It's kind of like the ketchup of the South. Right. And so one of the things she came to the stores and she's like, I was like, one thing you want to do is I want you to talk about how it made you feel walking down the aisle, going through the ethnicity aisle and not seeing any crema, ones that made you feel at home. You're thousands of miles away from your home and you're still not feeling, and this is relatable to everybody, New York to Texas, everybody, right? We don't have certain things that New York has, right? We have Trader Joe's out here. You might not have it out there. You guys, so on and so forth. And so how can you create that feeling, that sense like I'm missing that? And so that story then resonated. Now from there, I'll say, okay, now what you created. Tell me about, since I missed, now that you got their hearts hurt. Okay. So because of that, I created this crema. Here's where we started. Here's where we're at. Here's where we're going. And one of the things I really love that she did, it's like, listen, folks, if I even just get 1% of the market is like $350 million in value. I just need 1%. 1%, that's $3.5 million, So even then, like it became relatable, now became tangible. And she actually won the entire pitch competition. And the beauty of that is how they win is it's actually voted by the entire crowd. We have 300 people in a sold out, the Oregon Museum of Science Industry here in Portland, the OMSI, sold out the place and she won. And so she received about $8,000 in unrestricted grant funding for her to continue on to scale her business. And the reason this was important is because she was one of those individuals that was unfortunately recently laid off by Nike, one of the largest employers here in Oregon. We had a restructuring. So not only are we helping her scale her business, but we're also helping her find footing after this transition, right? And another individual was with our Portland water team. Really, really love the Portland Water team, what they're doing. But one of the things we're starting to talk with them is like, okay, I want you to start thinking about all the verticals. How much does it cost for you to hire an employee? This is actually Juan Barraza, our executive director I work with. We work together on this conversation. He's like, how much does it cost for you to actually hire a driver? How much does it cost for you the gas to go up to this spring to get this water? What happens if the spring runs out? What happens if the owner of the spring no longer lets you get that water? Start taking into account all of these things, because they were in the verge of possibly talking to, venture capitalists and things of that nature. I'm like, hey, well, before you do all that, think about all these things first. And if you want to continue to go that, by all means, but just make sure have those things in place. As I mentioned, the Altitude Beverage with the co-packing facility, helping those teams with Swiss Cider, connecting those guys. Really, for us, it's about the mentorship, making sure we connect entrepreneurs that are trying to scale their business to individuals that have succeeded in that specific, maybe it's an operation issue, maybe it's a marketing, maybe it's a sales, maybe it's a product development, right? Maybe they have a patent and they just don't have the equipment to actually develop the product, And so it's all about like finding the right mentor to help those individuals succeed. But we're hoping that these success stories become a lot more common. Go check out latinofounder.com. We can read some of the blog posts there of some of the past winners, but we really truly are trying to create an ecosystem where the Latino community, the Hispanic community, and even those that we surround and support are able to create and establish generational wealth to then, trickle down effect. Everybody loves to talk about, well, let's see how powerful that trickle down effect is if it is actually utilized by all cultures and all communities.
Right. Well, awesome. I really appreciate your time. I really loved the questions we asked, and we went over to a lot of stuff of your business and how you're, just running a lot of things, especially with the Latinos, and just all that stuff is amazing. I really appreciate, answering a lot of questions for us and especially the audience here. So I guess before we end here, is there a place that people can go and reach out to? Like, yo, man, like you sound like an amazing dude who lives in Oregon and I would love to get your services. Like, where's a place someone can find you? Like just one place.
Yeah, absolutely. I would highly recommend, please connect me on LinkedIn. Mr. Gabriel Flores, I believe I am on LinkedIn. Please connect me on LinkedIn. Don't follow, click that little down chevron arrow. And if you click the down chevron arrow, you see a connect button. Connect with me so I can also see your updates. If you follow me, I won't be able to see your updates. You'll only be able to see I would love to connect with you. Would love to learn what you guys are doing. Especially even if you're not in the Pacific Northwest, if you're across the country, I love to travel. I'm going. In fact, if you're down in Vegas in December, go Raiders! I'll be down there. So by any means, please connect with me. I love building a network. I love really learning from other people and their experiences. I believe getting yourself culture is going to help you create an experience. Like that's the reason we have Starbucks, right? Went to Milan, saw it, came back, brought it back. So. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, Gabriel Flores. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Gabriel. I really appreciate the time you've given us, and I thank you for joining the show. And of course, I thank everyone who's listening to this to definitely like and subscribe to this channel. And if you guys want to check out and get on your own podcast, definitely reach out and look up www.commandyourbrand.com. And of course, have a good one. And thank you, Gabriel, for joining us.